another exciting edition of Jofo In The Ring. I am the harbinger of truth, Jeremy Prophet, and I am joined by an outstanding wrestler, a terrific champion in this sport, a man of many names. You may know him as Manic, as Suicide, as Puma, as TJ Perkins. Nowadays, you know him as the former three-time X Division champion, TJP. Welcome to the show, my man.
What's going on, guys? Thank you very much for having me, Jeremy.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You know, I'm a big fan of your work, have been for a while. I mean, the first time I ever saw you wrestle was on TNA when you were Puma. Saw you do a match with Samoa Joe and was absolutely blown away. It was an amazing match. It was right when Joe had his undefeated streak going on there, fighting X Division guys.
I remember that, yeah.
Hell of a fight to him.
Yeah, he was on the Goldberg run for a little bit.
Yeah. And that was the first time I was introduced to you, and then, followed you throughout Suicide, into the Cruiserweight Classic, your run in WWE, and now your run back in Impact, as well as in a few other places too, because we see you in MLW, New Japan. You're kind of everywhere right now.
Yeah, a bit. I saw that there's like I don't know, it might have been a social media post or something the other, like few weeks back, when Moxley and Kenta had their title match, and somebody was like, Moxley's got AEW on this day. It was like the pay-per-view date, and then they got Kenta in the title match at NJPW, and then he had like a blood sport match that weekend. And then they were like, is there a harder worker than Mox in the business right now? I mean, like hyperbole, you know? And I was like, damn, I've been working for 3 companies for like a year now.
Just can't get that damn respect.
I got a kick out of it because I do think that I probably have the heaviest volume of work of anybody really in the business right now, but not like, it's not something that I think about in terms of like showing off. It's just one of those things that I didn't really think about it until that time. I was like, nah, I don't think anybody else does as much work as me, but that's probably why I'm so damn tired all the time.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, it's not bragging if you can back it up. And I mean, if you can work a schedule like that and still be in one piece, still going strong, man, that's a credit to you. I myself,
I wouldn't have it any other way.
I myself can relate. I've actually been a wrestler for 15 years. Now I'm behind the microphone, but that's actually what my education was in journalism. So it's a bit of a natural fit. I've been lucky, 15 years, by the grace of God, no injuries. Try to work as much as possible. If I could do it every day, I'm gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. And I think maybe we might have that in common, seeing that you keep yourself so busy.
100%, yeah, till the wheels fall off, you know.
Yeah. And just for the fans out there who may not be familiar with you, and if you guys aren't familiar with them, then what planet are you living on? Maybe you could tell them a bit about, when you got started in wrestling, how long you've been doing this, and, all the ups and downs.
Well, let's see. I got started back in 1998. I know I don't look it, but I'm not the youngest spring chicken. I'm still kind of youthful, I guess. But so yeah, this is like my 22nd year maybe in wrestling. And I got started in Los Angeles. I had hoped, I was 13 years old when I started. I had hoped to try and go to a number of different wrestling schools at the time. It was just really hard to find them, especially. And just to give people an idea of what life was like in 1998, for anybody watching or listening or whatever, like, I mean, this is pre-cell phones. This is before, MapQuest. There was no social medias. You didn't have Google, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have Twitter, Instagram, MySpace, Facebook, any of this stuff. So it was kind of hard to find information. I wrote a letter to Shawn Michaels' school, which hadn't opened yet. They just were like taking inquiries or something like that. Dean Malenko had a school. And all these places were just like not really feasible for me. At 13, I hadn't even started high school yet. And I sort of had given up on the search a little bit when I got into like my freshman year, before like the summer school before freshman year. There's another kid in school that had a wrestling school t-shirt on, and it was from like a local school nearby, and he was training, and I got information about it, and then I started, and then, I mean, a few weeks later, I was doing pickup matches on Lucha Libre cards, and thankfully, Southern California has a lot of, I guess you would call it unregulated wrestling. Mexican wrestling culture is pretty heavy out west here, so I was lucky in that respect. So I was wrestling a lot, you know, ditching school on Friday mornings and like getting picked up, going to a match on Friday night, and then asking around the locker room, like, who's going to this city after that, you know, San Diego, Los Angeles, whatever, you know, Las Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, Tijuana, across the border, San Francisco, and whoever was, you know, you know, the loops were smaller. The group, there weren't as many wrestlers at that time in the world, like independent wrestlers. So it was easy to kind of ask the locker room, like, who's doing this show or that show? Because somebody was doing a show somewhere the next day, you know. And I would just, you know, hitchhike with them, like jump in a different car and go to that show on a Saturday, and then do it, and then ask that locker room, like, who's going to this show on a Sunday, and I go to that show on a Sunday, and then, okay, who's going back to, you know, this area so I can go back to school on Monday morning. And that was what life was like for me when I was like 13 till about, you know, 16, 17 years old.
Oh, wow. So yeah, you were living the life of a traveling gypsy there, going all over the place for the love of this sport. It's pretty awesome story. And especially to get to start so young. I myself started at 17. But yeah, 13. Wow. That was, it's quite a young age to begin this, and what an amazing journey it's been. I see the t-shirt, and I got to say the detonation kick, by the way, one of my favorite maneuvers. And I just, you know, I love the way you hoist the guy up, kind of like a go to sleep, and then drop down and kick him upside the head. Really love the maneuver. I've been noticing as of late, by the way, it seems like Ricochet might have been ripping you off there. He's been doing it, calling it the kickback. Did he ask your permission on that, or what's going on there?
No, but
just highway robbery.
Yeah, but I've known Ricochet a long time, and I've never looked at wrestling in that way. Like, yeah, I think it's all community, you know, like, yeah, I've always, I think that once wrestling is out there, I mean, it belongs to wrestling at that point, you know? So, and, you know, like I said, I've known him a while, so I'm all good with it. He's a good guy.
Because it gets me thinking, and I remembered something. I don't know if it was Ricochet, but I do have a pretty good memory, although maybe it might fail me here. But wasn't there some kind of an incident where you had maybe submitted an idea to the creative team in WWE, and then they ended up giving it to, was it to Ricochet, I think, when he made his debut, something like that?
One of them was for Ricochet. My last year before I left, I had to. They asked me to write ideas because I wanted to leave a year prior, and you know, I told Vince I don't believe in quitting, but you know, I'm not really happy, and I don't think I'm a valuable commodity to you. You know, I'm a good wrestler, but everybody here is a good wrestler, so I don't, you know, I'm not anything special for you. I would like to do better, or just leave. You know, I don't want to waste your time and money. And so he said, well, you know, show me what you want to do and how can we use you better. And I kind of gave him an idea. Like I was more connected to the Filipino audience and my community and the Southeast Asian culture coming through the Cruiserweight Classic. And I kind of showed him different appearances I'd organized for myself, and doing like red carpets. I met with Manny Pacquiao and trained with his team, and like, you know, organized groups that would want to do like Filipino heritage nights, like they would do at like basketball games and NFL games, NBA games, stuff like that. And just different things I would want to work with the company, and showed him, said here. And he said, okay, well, let's see if we can figure out an idea to get you to like Raw. I think Raw was, he was like, we need to get you off this show and onto a different show. And so but the way that Vince works, creative drives the horse. So he's like, so write some ideas. We'll see what sticks and what comes up. And so I wrote for everybody, you know. Most guys only most guys, you tell them, hey, write us an idea. And it's like, okay, I want to be world champion. You know, that's everybody's like idea. So I wanted to write for everybody. So I mean, I wrote comedy stuff with like Elias, and underdog stuff with Jinder, and then I wrote stuff for like the Intercontinental title or whoever, just anybody, any character on the show. I wrote something like, here's how I could wrestle this guy or that guy or whatever. One of the ones I wrote was to kind of help Finn, because I've known Finn a long time, and I know that they had Leo, like, he was basically a manager, and he couldn't really work with a lot of guys because he's a lot smaller, and he can, but I don't think they knew what to do with him. So I wrote an idea how I can kind of help that story, which had just started. And so I wrote a little story that, you know, maybe they kind of are doubling up on Finn, and he needs like an equalizer, and being a cruiserweight and on Raw, like all the other Intercontinental guys were heels, Miz and Ziggler and different guys. So they wouldn't want to help Finn in that type of story. So Finn seeks out somebody else and ends up being me, somebody he's known, and a way to help get Finn to the Intercontinental title, and also for me to wrestle Finn once or twice, and also to wrestle Leo, just as a side kind of piece of it, and to help put Lashley over, and just to kind of help everybody in that aspect. And they used it to debut Ricochet. Wow. But it's okay, you know.
Because I mean, I remember reading that, and I'm like, man, that's really got to suck if you go through the effort of writing that, and they have this team of highly paid writers and whatnot. There's like probably 100 of them, and they just go and take your idea. I think you had said it's like pretty much like someone doing your homework for you, or you did the homework and they ended up submitting it.
A little bit. I mean, I guess the broad aspect, if you look at it like, for what it is, you got to understand what's to be in those guys' shoes. Every single, Friday or every single Monday, they have to go into these production meetings, and they have to sit in front of a really strict billionaire who's amazing at his job. And his demands are very high, and they have to sit there and every single week for the rest of their lives if they want to keep working there, with no off season, no television season. It's ongoing, it's weekly episodic. So it's like writing for the Tonight Show. There's no end to it. There's no such thing as a rerun in wrestling. So every week they got to come up with new ideas to pitch. And so when an idea comes across their desk, of course they're going to present it as theirs, so that saves them a whole week of writing. Like if I was them, they're suffocating for writing. Like it's insane the amount of writing they have to do. So of course, retrospect, for any young wrestler, if you're pitching something on a major league platform, Impact, WWE, whatever, understand that's what's going to happen. Is they need ideas, because you can't produce that many ideas.
Well, I think that's some great advice. And at the same time, I would follow your work that you were doing on 205 Live. I kind of got the impression like some of those guys were just trapped in purgatory there, doing those matches, especially after the shows, being put in a rough spot after people are sitting through an episode of SmackDown, and then you guys are being put on after. I kind of felt you guys were in a rough spot there. One of the things I loved, a gimmick that you were doing, was when you were feuding with Lucha House Party, and you were unmasking each one of them. And I found it interesting because at the same time, Randy Orton was doing a feud with Rey Mysterio where he was doing the exact same thing. And in my head, I was like, wow, here's a perfect fit. Why not have TJP be kind of like the sidekick to Randy Orton, because they have the same kind of feud going on, and maybe Lucha House Party shows up to back Rey. I'm not on the writing team. I don't have to kowtow to Emperor Vince every Monday and Friday, but I think it's a good common sense fit that would have helped to, put you in a better spotlight.
It would have been fun. I think probably the only issue was that was the same scenario as like the Ricochet story. Like somebody had wrote that for us to do on 205. 205 is a tough thing because what I discovered early on when Rich and I were doing, when I turned heel and I was working against Rich, and we were trying to pitch ideas to Vince. And we found out really early on that you had to be creative with your pitches because they weren't going to invest money in the show. So I remember originally, they wanted to have me and Rich go for a while. And so we're like, okay, we need to pitch ideas. And we'd pitch ideas. And we pitched, can we do a cage match on 205? That would be awesome. Like cruiserweights doing a cage match, things like that. And we discovered that certain matches, because of the production cost of the match, they weren't going to do it. If you weren't on Raw, they weren't going to do it, or SmackDown. So Rich and I pitched, for example, we ended up downgrading it and saying, hey, can we just do a hair match? Which is why we ended up doing that little bit where I ripped his hair out. They ended up nixing that towards the end. I don't remember. They might have done a different hair match later, but yeah, because hair match is free. It doesn't cost any money, but it's a cool gimmick. So the reason I bring that up is that the unmasking thing was a cheap, free idea for us to have this ongoing type of story. It cost nothing for that to be my reoccurring type thing. But since it worked so well the first couple of weeks, some of the crossover writers were like, hey, Vince, we should do this story with Randy Orton. because they know that they're not always really watching the cruiserweight show. So
Yeah.
when they pitched it for Randy, it seemed like a brand new idea. And so they would never have combined it, because then they would have had to say, well, we've also been doing it on this other show for a few weeks, and this is where we got it from. But but it would have been great. And I love Randy. Like, Randy is one of my like favorite dudes to be around when we would do the Raw shows and SmackDown, whichever show he was on. So I would have loved to work with Randy, you know.
I definitely think it was a big missed opportunity. And to me, you know, and it's one of the reasons I really wanted to get you in this interview, is because I feel like you were a guy who was, you know, plugging away, trying so hard to make something of the little that they had given you. And, you know, I think they definitely should have given you more, because you clearly have all the tools to have been more than just, you know, a bit part player on 205 Live. I mean, they started the whole cruiserweight division around you with your victory in the Cruiserweight Classic. And, you know, seeing where you started compared to, you know, where you ended there, it just didn't seem right. Again, it's politics and all those things that, you know, we have to deal with in this business. But again, it's nice to see that you can still, you know, hold your head high and you're still, you know, thriving and doing better than ever. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about, because I love the fact that you're so transparent about your run there. I had seen another interview that you did where you talked about how they would try to limit the offense, or they would try to limit like your creativity in matches, to the point where they would even tell the referee to, you know, call the action for you and put a guy in a chin lock and whatnot. And you'd have your stuff that you'd want to do to get over. Can you maybe elaborate a little more on that? Because that just blew my mind when I first heard that.
Yeah, so like that's actually really common. A lot of times the producers will more or less use a performer as an avatar and sort of just wrestle for them through the headset. But that's usually the case with somebody who just doesn't like know how to wrestle. You know, like they have the right package to be a star. I mean, it'd be like using an actor in a major blockbuster film. But like, there's some that, you know, you can just put them on screen and they may not have even need to have read the scene. You just gave them the bullet points and they'll kind of get through it. Like, Bill Murray is famous for that. He doesn't even read his lines. You just give him, hey, this 5 minutes here, this is the scene. You come into the apartment, this is what's going on, and they'll do it. They'll give you the scene. Whereas some actors, it's like, you know, they're a big star and they are talented, but it's like they're so meticulous and you almost have to kind of hold their hand through it to get exactly what you want. And so some performers are like that. And in other ways, when a performer, I guess, maybe is overqualified, they'll do that if they feel like they need to sort of like cap you, like put a glass ceiling. And then there's some performers like me who are maybe overqualified for that and will do whatever they want anyway. And then I remember in that occurrence, because several times I would tell the referee, or it's funny, they had their headset is two ways, so they could talk back to the gorilla position. So a lot of times if the referee was telling me stuff from, say, like, I don't know, Adam Pearce or somebody, right, I would get close enough to the referee that I could talk directly to Adam. So I like, it looks like I'm talking to the referee on screen, like I'm being a bad guy and just like yelling at the referee, but really I'm telling Adam, like, don't fucking tell me what to do anymore. Like, tell me when our time is up, and then that's it. But I mean, to be fair, like, I wasn't trying to put them in a bad position. If I got to the back and Vince didn't like what we did, I always took the heat. And it's like, sorry, I apologize, I won't do it again, and next time I know exactly what you want. So like, I'll always take heat, but it's like, you know, that's kind of the position we were in. On one rare occurrence, I remember Adam, he just lied to the referee and said to tell him our time was up. So that way we would stop, because we were doing stuff that was, it was working, it was good, metallic. And I remember we got to the back, and then, you know, like, when you're on TV, you know, like, ads will be like thousands and thousands, like huge money, you know, and live TV especially. So like, you can't affect the production schedule. Like, you can't just go over on your time or whatever. And now SmackDown has to start later, you know, for example. That's huge. So, you know, I can snipe a time, like, no problem. So when they say time's up, all right, time's up, we're going. And I remember getting to the back, and other producers who didn't have my match were like, why'd you go so early? And I was like, okay, well, you got me.
So, I mean, this is something, like I said, it blew my mind. I've been in the business 15 years, obviously, you know, haven't been the places that you have, but, you know, hearing that they harness such a control over what goes on, even, you know, as the match is taking place, it's just, it's astounding. You know, as if it's not bad enough.
It's a lot of micromanaging. Yeah.
Yeah. And to me, it's just like, I always kind of felt that, you know, if someone is maybe finding themselves at a spot on the card where they don't feel they should be, and maybe the majority of the fan base, you know, feels the same way, they can work their way out of it. They can use their in-ring ability to be able to get that reaction that they need to catapult them to the next level. But if they're going to, you know, put the boots to you behind the scenes and say, you know, put the guy in a snapmare and a chin lock and sit there, you know, when you have great, spectacular stuff planned and they're going to limit you, that's a really hard obstacle to overcome. And I think that that's something that more people, wrestlers like myself, need to be aware of once they get that opportunity. So I'm glad that you've shared some of that. Do you have any particular matches, like TV matches, where that happened? I know you mentioned with Metalik. Was there another one?
With Metallic, that was a unique one, because I remember it was like, so the thing about it is, like, they won't like cap somebody just because they want to waste their investment. I mean, they're not, you know, it's $1 billion business and company for a reason. Like, they're not like, hey, let's pay all this money and invest in this guy and then ruin him. Like, that's dumb. Like, even if you think that they're the type of people that would play that sick game, like, that doesn't make any sense. They want to make money. So if you're good, they want to make money off you. It's more in the case of like smaller scale stuff. Like if they're really working on. So, okay. I've said this before, and this is the best way to put it. And this is, like, you know, not an example of a specific match, but just to give you an idea. Like, we've heard a lot, wrestling is a television show, and WWE is a television show. So we hear that a lot. Fans will hear that a lot, and everybody thinks they understand that when it's said, like, oh yeah, I get it, because it's not really about the wrestling. They do a lot of talking. That's not what that means. When somebody says WWE is a television show, it's literally, it means WWE is a television show. It's The Simpsons, it's The Walking Dead, it's Supernatural, it's X-Files, whatever, right? So
I kind of like to compare it to Saturday Night Live.
So, okay, similar to that, but more like a drama television show. So, like, if or just, you know, like with a particular cast that are telling stories, and so, like, say it's like The Simpsons, right? Simpsons. Matt Groening and his team, the producers, they all have to go in and pitch The Simpsons to Fox. You know, at this point, probably not really anymore, but, you know, they have to renew their TV deals or sponsors, you know, Butterfinger, whatever. Mm-hmm. And they go into these meetings, and they pitch The Simpsons. And when they pitch The Simpsons, they say, okay, here's our poster, The Simpsons, Bart, Homer, Maggie, Lisa, Marge. This is our show. And Walking Dead, same thing, you know, Carl, and et cetera, and, you know, WWE is the same way. So they have their cast of 5 to 10 people. Those are the main characters. That's really what the show is about. Everybody else is not really on the show. Like, you think you are. You sign a contract with a company, you're like, oh, hey, I'm signed. I'm here 3 years for X amount of money. You're not really on the show. You're just Lenny and Carl on The Simpsons is really what you are, you know? And so just like The Simpsons or Walking Dead or whatever, like, they're not really writing for you. It's about the other characters. You're just there to help fill out the episode. And even if you do something that's extraordinary or you start to really catch on with fans, there could be an episode where Chief Wiggum is hilarious. They're not going to start writing every episode around Chief Wiggum. Next week, it's going to go right back to Bart and Homer, you know? They might start thinking, okay, in the future, we'll use more Chief Wiggum stuff every now and then because people like it, but it's not going to all of a sudden become the Chief Wiggum show because they've already had, you know, advertisers and a network and all these different people give them millions or $1 billion, and they've sold them Homer and Bart. So they're not going to change it and give them Chief Wiggum, because then Butterfingers will be like, dude, we paid you $1 million for Bart. Why are we watching Chief Wiggum? You know, so they have to answer to them. So when they cap guys in matches, it's not because they're trying to waste their investment, but they have to answer to whoever paid $1 million for Brock Lesnar at the top or whoever, you know what I mean? So that's why things like, say, Kofi Mania, for example, is so extraordinary, because like that's an example of them going against the grain and probably going against our advertisers to try and give the fans something that they really want at that time as much as they can before getting it back to what they've already sold, like Roman and Brock and Undertaker, whoever, right? Which I don't think the company gets enough credit for, to be honest. Because we always think, oh, why won't they just give us what we want? It's like they're trying a lot more than, like, if Walking Dead had an episode where they introduce a guest character and they're like this crazy, like, you know, warrior character, and they save, you know, Carl and Michonne and all these people and do all this badass stuff. Like, Walking Dead's not going to be like, oh, this character's so popular, we're going to keep using him. Like, you might see them 2 seasons later in another cameo, but that's it. They're not going to throw the fans a bone on that. Like, WWE does that way more often. But that's the thing is so, you know, if you're not chosen for a specific thing, they're going to cap you. I remember at that time, like the Metallic match, that was Survivor Series week. And they, you know, they were running with Ali and Buddy for the cruiserweights. And I remember Ali and Buddy, like, they did like 4 dives in a match and were doing stuff off the guardrails and just really crazy, cool stuff, you know, dumping each other on each other's heads and stuff. And it was awesome. Every other cruiserweight can also do that, but they would go in there and they would tell the other cruiserweights, you can't do it. You're not allowed to. But it's like, you're letting these guys do it and they're flourishing. Why can't the other guys do it as well? But they've been chosen for that moment. That's it. That's the investment right now. So that's why they'll cap other guys, because it's like, we gotta no. You know what I mean?
In the infamous words of Rick in Walking Dead, since you used the reference, it is not a democracy.
Yes, exactly. So, you know, it's tough, and like that's a thing for like wrestlers when you get in those positions. Like, if you didn't come in the door as Homer and Bart, it's very rare that you're going to become Homer and Bart later. Like once in a generation, they'll have a Stone Cold go from ringmaster to Stone Cold, you know, and then all of a sudden the show's about them. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen, you know. So like guys will, you'd see it all the time in December. Guys think they're getting ahead of the curve, and they'll like, oh, I'm gonna pitch a story that like before the Rumble, just in time for Mania season. Like, I'm ahead of the curve. No, dude, you're a year late, because last year they already sold WrestleMania's poster to the venue for next year's Mania, and you're not on that poster. You're not going to change that at the Royal Rumble or Survivor Series or whatever. Like, you need to pitch 2 years down the road if you really expect to try and do that. But chances are you already signed a deal that demonstrates what you're going to be for the company. And if you didn't come in the door as that, you're probably not going to be that.
Yeah, definitely some words of wisdom there. And I'm glad, you know, I'm getting to soak in some of this knowledge from a veteran like yourself. It's interesting that you said about, you know, if you don't come in, not everyone can come in as ringmaster and leave as Stone Cold. You came in actually as TJ Perkins, and maybe it's a victim of micromanaging, but you became TJP somewhere along the lines. Is there a big story behind that? Was it your decision, or they just came to you one day and said, we're making the change?
Not a big story. I asked Vince if we can use my initials, because on the indies before that, like, I'd done a Super Junior tournament in New Japan and Evolve and some stuff where like I was just being called TJP. It was sort of just like a pet name for like indie fans, like, you know, Chris Paul CP3 or Heartbreak Kid HBK. And I was like, can we use TJP just as a nickname? It wasn't meant to replace my full name. I just said, can we use that like Y2J? But I guess same as like exactly like Chris Jericho, for like a few years they didn't even say Jericho. They just said Y2J for everything. So that's why it appeared like they changed my name, but it was really just my request. I pitched 2 things that day. I pitched, when I turned heel, I said, can we shorten my name to TJP just because it sounds more like arrogant or catchy or whatever. It'll give me a sort of a turning point visually. And I asked for a manager because Summer Rae was looking for something to do creatively, and she was like, I would love to be a manager or do something. She was cleared and, you know, to perform again. So we both pitched it, but he said yes to the name, no to Summer Rae. I think because she was taller than every cruiserweight except for me and Gulak. She was taller than, so it was like, he was like, no, we're not going to make you guys look like that. So yeah.
Okay, no, that's pretty cool. And another thing I really liked about your run was that awesome entrance music that you had. the kind of Mega Man sounding music that you came out to. I think you had two versions of it. There was a more heavier rock version of it. Was that your idea? Did you have some input in that, or they just came to you with it?
Both of them were my idea. The first one, CFO Money called me after the Cruiser Classic, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna make some music for you, or do your music. Did you like the song you had in CWC?" And I told him I liked it, but it just didn't feel like it didn't suit me. Like, if you know me as a person, I think people see me as something on the outside, and and it's so very different from who I am as a human being. And I was like, it doesn't really feel me. So they said, okay, well, give us some references, tell us what you like, and we'll come up with something. And I gave them the worst list of references ever. I was like, Tupac, Elvis, Blink 182, Nirvana, Ella Fitzgerald. Like, I mean, just stuff that did not go together, you know.
Pretty
But
eclectic.
it's all stuff, yeah, but it's stuff I like. And they're like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And I like 20 minutes later, I was like, that was terrible. I got to call these guys back. So I called them back and I said, look, I'm trying to create Scott Pilgrim. Gulak, who's a friend of mine, during the CWC, we were sitting between matches watching in the theater, and he's like, I really liked your match today. I said, thank you. And he said, you move like a video game. Everything looks so easy. And he's like, if we were all in a video game, you would be the character I would play as. And I used to hear that a lot. And it used to be a source of criticism. Like, you look too easy in the ring. You don't make it look dirty enough or hard enough. And at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I'm not changing. Like, I'm not going to be Joe Frazier. I'm Muhammad Ali. Like, I look that way, and for better or worse, it's always going to look like I'm floating or I'm graceful. That's it. And so I said, you know what? Like, I should be a human video game player. That's a good way to describe it. And I'm a gamer. So I told CFO, I said, I like Wily's Castle. Can you make Mega Man 2? And they said, we have been waiting to make this song our whole lives.
Oh, wow.
And so they're like, we know exactly, say no more. We know exactly what you need. They came back like, you know, later, and they said, this is what we got. And I said, perfect. And I went to the stage production crew at Raw, and I said, can you make it look like Marvel vs. Capcom with like power bars and like little power-ups from like old like Super Nintendo games, like cherries and coins and things. And they said, yeah, we can do it. And then, you know, a couple years later, like when I turned heel and stuff, I went back to see if I said, can you make like a more like heavy, like guitar-ish, like Scott Pilgrim garage band version of my song? And they said, yeah, we can do it. And that's how those two things came about.
Oh, well, I'm glad that they gave you that, because that song is iconic. I think it's the first 8-bit song that has ever infiltrated its way into professional wrestling, at least in the WWE.
So too, yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for that. And I do have that on my playlist every so often. It comes up, and man, yeah, it's super catchy. And now, obviously, you're doing a lot of good business right now with Impact Wrestling as well. Coming off of a run with the X Division title. You know, you held that title quite a while ago as Suicide, and you got it again, ironically, I think, as Suicide or as Manic in that storyline with Rohit. Very entertaining stuff you've been doing, and now I know you're in that rivalry with Ace Austin and Fulton. And so what stuff can people be in store for if they check you out on Thursday nights now on Impact?
Well, an interesting, maybe inadvertent side ingredient to that story is Josh Alexander now is a singles wrestler, you know, fellow Canadian. So yep. he's repping north of the border pretty well. And he's part of the story now. And they rather like me and Josh. And to be honest, I had never really had a goal of doing any more X Division stuff when I came back. I really wanted to do tag stuff with Follow. And I think we're going to get back to that. Getting the X Division title and being in that spot again was I'm humbled by it and I'm proud of it, but it wasn't really a goal of mine. But I have a lot of fun being in the ring with Josh. And now that they've kind of discovered they sort of like that, like, it sort of became like a Regal versus Benoit sort of match to them, where they're like, let's just put these guys in there to fight all the time. And so we're going to have a few more. And I really like it because Josh is so incredibly talented, and I'm blessed to be in there with somebody, you know, with his talent level. And I'm glad that people are starting to see how good he is. So I guess, you know, people can expect a little bit more of that, and you know, some more stuff will follow, because you know, they're getting us back in the saddle again together. So hopefully it'll be more of the same, you know, entertaining stuff. A lot of it's pretty funny. So I enjoy doing comedy.
It has definitely been entertaining, and I love the little back and forths you guys are also having on Twitter. I think there's a great dynamic between you two. Always good to see a great Canadian in action. I've been a big advocate for the fact that I think we need more Canadians in wrestling. Canada kind of gets forgotten about since, we have border restrictions, work visas, all those things keeping us
Yeah.
from being able to make our names for ourselves on the indies. I mean, myself, I consider myself the runt of the litter, but I always say that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of great wrestlers that could be champions, main eventers, even future Hall of Famers. Just, hopefully the scouting can get to where it needs to be so people can see us, since, we can't cross the border and go to you guys. But, one day at a time, one step at a time, and hopefully, this flag back here will get some recognition for providing a lot of great talents to the business of wrestling. Obviously, now with COVID, it's almost not possible. But hopefully, once that clears up, we'll be able to get some Canadians on your side of the border and in some prominent positions. If you don't mind me asking, we don't have to talk about it, but with COVID, it's been a hot topic. I, for one, like the fact that you offer a different opinion on it. I know some people are quick to white knight and jump to conclusions and whatnot, but I think that it's a kind of thing where you can't be ignorant to any perspective, and I've definitely found yours to be really enlightening on a lot of topics. Is there maybe a message you want to send to people out there with regards to how it's being handled and how they should go about in their daily lives dealing with this?
Um, I think that it would be, if I could say anything, it'd probably just be that, like, broaden your perspective to be able to separate your own education and your own perception of something, which is going to be ongoing. Perceptions change and education changes, especially if you're open-minded and you want to learn more. I come from a medical family, so I learn new stuff all the time. That's part of the reason why I try to encourage people to ask good questions, and I'll always play devil's advocate so that people can understand that there's an extent to things, and sometimes perception is not exactly what you think it is. But what I mean is, there can be a separation of your perception and your education on something and your ability to also just live your life within the system in place. So for example, I'll play devil's advocate on things that are just science that, for example, that's incorrect, or things that I just know firsthand from my grandfather was a doctor, my sister's a doctor, coming from a medical family, there are certain things it's just, there's questions not being asked or things that people don't think about. That doesn't stop me from still doing things that I may not agree with. For example, I don't totally believe in all the protocols, from a scientific standpoint. That doesn't mean I don't wear a mask. And it doesn't mean I don't, I take 9 tests per month and I wear a
Hey,
mask.
you won a championship wearing a mask.
Yeah. And, and I stand or sit, exactly where I'm told or asked to, what people are comfortable with. And I wear a mask when I'm asked to, and I take every test that I'm asked to take. And, my pursuit of understanding something better, and that doesn't include popular opinion, doesn't stop me from still following directions, so that way everybody can fit in and do their thing on a daily basis. So I just would encourage everybody to kind of be able to separate that. Don't use everything as a virtue signal to put up a flag, so to speak, that says I'm on this side or that. It shouldn't be about sides. Learn more, ask questions, and in the meantime, do whatever you need to do to get along with the people around you. It's not that hard.
Yep.
I think there's a misconception, because people are people are frustrated, so they want to be able to say I'm on this side. So if you have this opinion, therefore means you're on the side. It's like, dude, no, it doesn't. It doesn't mean you think anything. It doesn't mean you're a flat earther. It doesn't mean you're this or that. It's just you're just asking questions. That's all it is.
Yeah, no, and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with free thought. And, the more that we can look at things from different perspectives, the better understanding we'll have of it. And we're in this together. I mean, like you said, we're all suffering. We're all dealing with the consequences. We're under a 9:30 p.m. Eastern curfew here in Montreal, in Quebec, actually. I think we have the worst restrictions of anywhere in North America, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've heard.
But still just trying to, find a way of being able to maintain some sense of normalcy and, you know, hopefully get through this. But we are at the mercy, unfortunately, of those in power, our elected officials. But, you know, we will remember. The North remembers. And so hopefully when those elections roll around, we can get rid of the people that are putting us in these positions and hopefully get back to business as usual. How are things in, you're in California, right?
Nevada right now, but my
Oh,
family still lives in California. So it's like 50-50. Yeah.
no. So how are things over there? Are things getting better?
I mean, you know, things were never really too terrible. I think if you get outside of the house and you're not looking at a screen, you'll for a lot of people, life doesn't change that much. California tougher than other places. One of the reasons why I left California was just like for financial reasons, so that, you know, I can prosper a little bit and do different things, investing and you know, with my house especially and things like that. But Nevada's been pretty great. It's almost, I wouldn't say the Florida of the West, but it's pretty great because everybody out here is very like individual and like kind of respects everybody's individuality. So it's sort of like you do you, I'll do me. So restrictions have been pretty light out here throughout. California is so it kind of depends on where you go, but you know, from the time I've spent there, it's not like unmanageable, you know. It's been okay.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, it's definitely sounds better than us. And I know for a fact the weather is probably a lot better out there too. We still got some cold days here. So
best in the world, man. California air and West Coast air, there's nothing like it.
So being that you're from, did you say Arizona or Nevada? Sorry, I kind of.
Right now, I'm living in Vegas, in Nevada.
In Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay, Vegas. So I was going to say, Vegas being the fight sports capital of the world, are you an MMA fan?
You know, I've always only been like a fair weather MMA fan, which is weird because like before MMA was like a thing, I had to do a lot of it. Like going to New Japan, like everything I did was, you know, grappling and catch wrestling and jiu-jitsu and sparring, kickboxing, Western boxing, stuff like that. That was all I did for years. But at that time, like UFC was still like the gimmicky cage fighting company, you know, like it wasn't big yet. And like Pride fighting was kind of cool in Japan. And I was a big Pride fan back in the day. So like, you know, that was like the height of my fandom as far as MMA goes. But the more it's become like mainstream, I never really caught on with it. I've always been kind of detached. I've always really liked the pure versions of each piece of it. So like I like boxing more than MMA. I just feel like it's more pure, you know. MMA is an interesting mix of everything, but the art itself is, I don't know, it's just not as beautiful to me as when it's individual, like amateur wrestling, freestyle wrestling, individual, you know, catch wrestling, boxing, like when they're by themselves, it's beautiful to watch.
Well, that actually was the principle of the UFC when it first started. I mean, I'm sure you're well aware when it started, it was to see which individual martial arts form was superior.
Yeah, like one versus the other is the other.
Yeah,
I think,
so
you know,
get
the
a boxer, jiu-jitsu, wrestling.
yeah, the interesting byproduct is now everybody kind of learns 25% of each of those things, you know, or like, you know, 30 to 50% of each of those things and kind of mixes it together, which is a necessity because like now, like MMA as it is, people have become so efficient that you can't just be a pure boxer or like a pure wrestler, like, because there's a very finite amount of situations you get put in. So you got to have this like sort of mutated version of all those things together, which is cool. Like it's not a knock on it. It just, for me, I never caught on for me, my interest as far as more than casual, but each individual piece of it and just MMA itself is stuff I've had to do a lot of, just because of my, you know, our job. But like, as a fan, I didn't, you know, I'll watch it occasionally. I know some of the fighters, but not, you know, it's not something I'm super into all the time. I don't stress if I miss a lot of the fight cards or anything. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I myself am a big fan, and it's interesting because I feel there's a similar parallel in the many different styles of professional wrestling. And, you know, I try to, in my matches, try to bring a little bit of everything. And now in this day and age with the different opponents that we get, you kind of have to know a little bit. You got to know a little bit of, you know, catch, a little bit of lucha, a little bit of hardcore, and kind of, I guess we're kind of also maybe learning only 25% of each one, but enough to be able to go in there, work with everybody, and, you know, try to give the people the best match possible. With that said, we're kind of running short on time here, but I kind of want to turn things over to you to let our audience be able to know where they can follow you, where they can find you, and maybe any interesting things you want to plug or have coming up.
Pretty easy. I'm not too terribly active on socials. I got a Twitter and Twitter and an Instagram. It's both are Mega TJP. My Twitch is also Mega TJP, and I stream irregularly, but usually about twice a week. I don't have really anything else other than that. All my merch has been pushed to get. I used to have a separate merch store, but pandemic and everything that had to kind of shut the factory down, so to speak. But everything's been moved on to Pro Wrestling Tees, and I'm under TJP there. And then Cameo finally roped me in. So for those that are seek out that sort of thing and want to connect on there, you can find me on Cameo as well. But I mean, that's pretty much it. And you can catch me every week on Impact and New Japan Strong as well. And hopefully when travel restrictions start to lighten up, they'll get the best of the Super Juniors back together and at the regular schedule. And I'll be overseas as well in Major League Wrestling. You can catch me in all those places for the time being, and maybe more coming up. So we'll see.
Yeah, and as soon as the borders open up and the travel restrictions die down, maybe we can get you up here in Canada.
Oh, absolutely.
So definitely we can keep in touch. Maybe shoot me a follow on the Twitter right after I shoot you one. But I think I do follow you. I think I actually started following you way back. I'll check into that. But yeah, maybe we can get you up here in Canada for a couple of shows too, and you can.
Will do. Hopefully it'll be sooner than later.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we're all hoping, we're all praying for that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Like I said, I'm a big fan of yours. It's really an honor to be able to have gotten to do this interview with you. It's been very gracious on your part. And I appreciate how just, honest and forthcoming you were with everything. I think this has definitely been a treat from our fans. And if it wasn't, I can say that it's been a treat for me and Bruno here in the studios. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, no, thank you very much, Jeremy. It's been a pleasure, and and I can't stress enough how great you guys have been and how pleasant this was. So thank you very much.
And I do hope to one day maybe even get to share the ring with you.
Oh no, absolutely. As soon as we can get it done, let's make it happen. So
awesome.
Canada, lighten up. Let everybody do their thing. So we can start making these things happen.
That's what I like to hear. All right. Well, it's been a fantastic episode. I thank you so much for being here with us. And with that, as we always like to say here, remember, folks, wrestling is life.